So, if y'all have known me for any amount of time in my personal life, you know the one thing I never shut up about is cars. So I'm going to kick off my little car adventure on YouTube today with cars that I personally think are criminally underrated. Now this is my opinion, not basing it on some fact, but mostly my opinion, cars I think that are criminally underrated. So I'm starting with this video because it's going to be controversial. Y'all aren't going to agree with me on some of these. I'm doing 5, so let's just hop right into this. They're not really in any particular order. I'm going to try to kind of get them in some kind of an order by the end, but I'm just going to go with the list that I have. Number 1, in my opinion, of cars that are criminally underrated is the Hyundai Veloster. Any trim level, any year model, anything like that. I know the earlier models had some transmission issues with the dual clutch system that they were using. And I know Hyundai in general can be a little bit of a mixed bag of reliability. But if you've never been in one, I suggest it. It's so much fun to drive in any trim level. Very planted, very refined, very low to the ground. Very sporty for the price that you're looking at and from Hyundai in general. They're a lot of fun drive-wise, but they're also a lot of fun style-wise. They're super quirky, super out there, very different than anything else you'd find on the market, like 2 doors on one side, one on the other hatchback. You're not going to find that. I'm afraid you're not going to find it for very much longer because, I mean, the sales are pretty slow of them, and I think that's just so sad that, like, such an interesting and quirky car is not selling as much. And speaking of selling, it has one of the lowest starting prices of any new car you can find. Like, it's like 18,000 something, I think, for the base model. Now, you can go all the way up close to 30 with the N model. But, personally, Hyundai Veloster, criminally underrated. Like, actually makes my heart hurt underrated. The next one may stir the pot a little bit. The Jeep Liberty. All models included, but especially the first gen, I feel like it's very underrated. It was one of Jeep's first crossovers. I think it's the Jeep crossover that did the best job of being a Jeep. Because I like the Renegade and the Compass and the Patriot and the Cherokee now, they really aren't as capable as the old Liberties were. They have like a solid 4-cylinder lineup. They don't have the ground clearance. They don't have the approach and departure angles. It may be the Renegade, but not the Cherokee or the Compass, the new ones anyway. They don't have the approach and departure angle that the old Liberty had. Liberty came with V6. I think you could get a 4-cylinder in there, but and there's also a diesel. The crossovers now really don't have the capability that the old Liberty had. With the Jeep brand image, a lot of people say the Liberty is not really a Jeep. Like, doesn't have the brand image that a Wrangler or a Grand Cherokee or even a Gladiator now would have. But if you look at it from this, I think it did the best job of being a Jeep out of all the crossovers that Jeep has made. I know a lot of people don't like the Renegade because it's basically a Fiat 500X, but with Jeep clothing. But it is fairly capable for what it is. But I think the Liberty really takes the cake because it has solid 4-wheel drive, like actual locking differentials and everything, unlike the all-wheel drive systems of some of the newer ones. And you can pick up, especially the first-gen Liberties, you can pick them up for like dirt cheap compared to a new Jeep especially. But just kind of in general to most SUVs, you can find anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 4-wheel drive models. You can find some 2-wheel drive models for as low as like 1,500 to 2,000 in not god-awful shape. You know, with Jeep, they don't have the most outstanding reliability record, but it's better than a lot of others. I just think that it really gets overlooked, especially in the off-roading community, as people who, like a first off-roader that build. I definitely feel like it's underrated. So, moving on to the next one, a car I've had a personal relationship with is the 2006 to 2012 RAV4s. Also going back to the Liberty. super capable for a crossover, especially with the V6 and the four-wheel drive system. Reliability is like, it's one of those cars that's broken and you can still drive it. Like, even the RAV4 that I have with like nearly 250,000 miles with a busted transmission will still drive down the road. So with the Toyota, you're getting the reliability. Even with the front-wheel drive model, it's still decently capable. You get good gas mileage with the front-wheel drive, like you get close to 30 on the highway. They just feel more like an SUV than a lot of the newer crossovers that are coming out. And the ride height is perfect. They're very comfortable. They handle somewhat decently. And they're simple. Like, they're like, same thing with the Liberty. They're very simple. Like, they don't have all the super high-tech safety stuff and the super high-tech infotainment stuff you really don't need. So if that's not what you're looking for, I think if you're looking for an SUV, the Liberty and the RAV4 would be best. But where the RAV4 really takes the cake with being a better vehicle is the resale value. Even in the condition that the RAV4 that I have is in, I could sell it for $3 or $4 grand. And with the V6 and four-wheel drive, there's some 2012 models still going for over $10,000 with low miles. And I think that just really puts the spotlight on Toyota's resale value. Keeping in the Toyota trend is the Corolla E140, which is like the model from like 2008 to 13 or 7 to 13. It's kind of the almost bubbly one. I think personally that styling looks really good on that car. Once again, it's one of the ones that have a busted transmission, a flat tire, and one cylinder's not working and you're still driving. No check engine light either. It still hasn't come on. They are getting to the point where they're very affordable, and they're also still hold a good bit of their resale value. They're becoming cheaper because, especially in America as a whole, they're going more towards crossovers, which is a topic for another video. But I personally really like the style of the Corolla E140, which is, like I said, the 2008 to 2013, somewhere in there. I think those are one of the best looking Corollas outside of the new ones, because I actually have a new model Corolla, the 12th gen, and I think it's one of the better looking ones, especially reliability. I think it's from like the 90s to 2013, that was the pinnacle of Toyota's Corolla's reliability. Literally built like tanks, like could survive a nuclear blast. Now this last one may be the one that you click off the video and like dislike for. It's the Fiat 500, not the X, just the regular 500. And before you leave, I know they're not known for their reliability. Anything Fiat is not. But if you've ever driven one, it's like driving a go-kart on the road. They are super fun to drive. They handle super well. They're not hideously uncomfortable, and they actually got a lot of headroom, surprisingly, for a vehicle of its size. Especially with the Abarth motor. They are a blast to drive, especially for the price that you could buy one. They are very cheap, second, third, fourth hand, depending on how far down the line you go. And the styling is super fun, super retro. I know a lot of people aren't into the retro design. Personally, I think it's a hit or miss. The Fiat, I think, is a very solid hit with the retro design. I think the nail in the coffin for the Fiat 500 was definitely its reliability. I mean, if you've watched any car videos, Scotty Kilmer especially, but any car videos talking about the Fiat 500, you know that they're not reliable. But I think the fun factor can kind of trump that, especially if it's not your primary car. If it's a car you're having fun with, they are super fun, especially with the Abarth motor and the manual transmission. And they're small. Like, they're the smallest car on this list. Super easy to park. Like, you can just fling them around. And at the end of the day, if it breaks, you really won't miss it, to be honest. So it's worth a look, especially if you're looking for a cheap car to mess around with, that if it breaks, you're not going to be upset. So yeah, that's the top 5 cars I think are criminally underrated. I think in order, it would have to go like Number 5 would be 500, the Fiat 500. Number 4 would be the RAV4. Number 3 would be the Corolla. Number 2 would be the Liberty, and number 1 would be the Veloster. I feel like the Veloster is one of the most underrated cars, like, ever, to be honest. If you've enjoyed this video, look out for my next video. I believe I'm probably going to make the cars that I think are criminally overrated. So, y'all stay having a good time. Bye-bye.